Hi again. Today I'm going to be teaching an advanced ballet class. Again, thank you so much for watching this and taking the time out of your day to check this out. Okay, so typically the first thing I would have my advanced students do is when they come into class, I would ask them to do their push-ups or whatever arm exercises they need and some abs just to get those muscles warmed up and start working them so that they are used to having to engage them. And they would just do this as they were filtering in before class started. The first combo that we're gonna do is pliés. I do the same pliés every time, so I'm just gonna do them with the music for you. Demi and stretch, demi and stretch, grand plié, and up. I like to rotate in and roll down, stretch out the hamstrings a little bit, roll up, slight cambre back, turn out, second, demi, stretch, demi, stretch, grand plié. Reach side, cambre over. Slight shifting in for an elevate. Down, fourth position. Demi and stretch. Demi and stretch. Again, turn in. Stretch over the front foot. And go to the back foot, making sure that your hips are square. And back to the front. Plie. To get their weight forward, I like to have them shift their back leg to their front. Then cambre forward, flat back. Again, weight on the front foot. And back, keeping the legs straight and the head aligned. Su-su. And fifth, making sure we have that zipper. And softly finish. The next combination I'm going to be doing is a combination that I like to use to engage my students' turnout. So it's basically a tendu from first, but it's slow so that they can really engage those turnout muscles and think about where their heel is being placed based off of the rotation up in the hip. Heel flip in the back, tendu, en croix, reverse, plie, front, plie, back, coupe on the ground next to the heel, making sure we're using our head as well. First, tendu en croix reversed. And then they would do the other side. After doing left and right, I then also have a turnout combination for the side. Arm down. Front, Okay, so naturally the next combination that I would do is a tendu from fifth. I like to use combinations that force you to use your brain a little bit more. So I like to add a little bit of tricky movement. So the one we will be doing today is a tendu, tendu, chassé, tendu, close, tendu, tendu, in and in. Chassé, out and out, in and in, tendu, out and out, focusing on the head. Susu and balance and coupe. Really again focusing on that standing leg, heel forward, and arms engaged, no drooping, not too low, and up, and they'll balance. The next combination we will be doing is dégagé, and I like to go from fifth position. With dégagé, I like to think of really brushing against the floor because this is going to prepare us for our grand battements. And so if we can learn to use the floor, we should have even started with tendus, of course, but if you really learn to brush against the floor, it's going to have that nice energy. And to me, I feel like dégagés typically have more of that sharpness, because dégagé is what we're going to use for our jetés and a lot of movements. Like a lot of movements come from this dégagé. So yes, there's that. And then also, again, I have a part where it's going to be dégagés going à la séquence. And I think the hardest thing for a lot of us dancers as we work on our technique is making sure that our hips are set. Not that they're stiff, but that they're in place in a nice rotated form, as if we are trees and this is our trunk, and a trunk has to be strongly rooted into the ground. So that's the big focus, especially when we do multiple dégagés à la séquence. To always have a balance at the end of my combinations. And out. Okay, something that I also like to do after we've warmed up our ankles a little bit is the Australian ballet has, I mean, I think a lot of us know, they have a great dance scientist group, and they talk about doing certain exercises to avoid injury, and one of these exercises is 24 élevés on each individual leg, parallel, to avoid lower leg injuries. And so that's something that I would typically have my students do after our dégagés. And so I think at first, like at the beginning of the year, it would be facing the bar and each elevate is supposed to be 2 counts. So really slow. Again, 24 of them. I won't do all of them just to save us some time. But then after doing them for a couple of weeks or so, it's always good to try to do it just with one arm on the bar. Because at first it's really hard to do. You don't realize it, but the calves don't have a lot of strength sometimes. And so at first it's good to like start facing the bar and having 2 hands. But as we got used to them and strengthened our calves, I always like to have one hand on our hip and one hand on the bar. And again, 24 of those, in between each set, there would be like a small stretch of the calf, and then other side. So, yeah. The next combination that I would do is typically rond de jambe à terre. I love adagios, so I like to do a lot during these combinations because I think it's really good for the students to continuously be testing their balances. So, without further ado, this is one of the combinations that I like to use for rond de jambe. And if they can slightly release between each releve, that's great with me. Really focusing on the turnout of the leg, and then adding the arm for the artistry. And up, plie, arabesque, up. Try to switch arms to balance. Sous-sus, down, rond pour le bras. Reverse. Making sure that they're not lifting with their quad. Reverse on rond. And then I will always have them sous-sus, inside leg coupe. They'll be turned into the bar slightly. I like them to lift, try to drop the heel, lift the leg a little higher, drop the heel, lift the leg a little higher, drop the heel, go into attitude as high as they can with the turned out leg, making sure that their hips are as square as possible. And once they find their balance, extending into arabesque, sous-sus, finish. Okay. So, to contrast rond de jambe and the smooth fluidity of that combination, I then like to do frappe to get the muscles again working on that sharpness. There's a combo that I will use often: frappe, coupe, tendu, dégagé, piqué, plié, pirouette, plié, and side. So, if I don't do it very well, just know, haven't been doing it a lot lately, so here we go. turn. Like that. Backwards pencil turn. And then the other side. So after frappe, I have a set combo for stretching. It leaves room for students to do a little bit of their own stretching in between each side. But for me, this stretch has proved to really help with my grand battements and with my extensions. What it does is it really, it stretches out your hip flexor very well, of course your hamstrings and your quads, but it also moves your body in a way that it starts to warm up the iliopsoas, which the iliopsoas is one of the muscles. It's a deeper muscle, but it's one of those muscles that we really have to work on, as it is one of those muscles that helps with lifting your leg up really high. So I know it like starts up in the abdominal area and then wraps around. So this is just a combo that I learned from my teacher back in high school, and whenever I have used it throughout college, my flexibility has gotten a lot better. So I will always do this stretch. The inside leg forward and go forward. Back forward, making sure that our body is as lifted as possible. And stretch side, but then you slightly bend back at an angle. And reach around, turn out that front foot, and stretch your quad, making sure that you're not sickling that foot. It's easy to grab your ankle, pull it in as tight as possible, making sure you're pressing in your hips. It shouldn't be like this, it should be pressed forward. And then release that. And 90-degree angle first, nose to toes. Again, making sure that your hips are square, and then go all the way back. And then you'll sit back, and having a flat back, try to lift your leg. You can bend and stretch, but again, it's about making sure you have that flexibility while turning out, and your back is as flat as possible. And cross it. Let's get that nice hip stretch. And then slide into the splits. Again, trying to make sure that we have square hips, so this hip is coming forward. And then after some time, they'll stretch forward, up, and back, and up. And if they have enough flexibility, as they bend back, they'll also lift up that back leg and try to touch their toes to their head. And then of course, between sides, stretching in the middle, whatever they need, then the right side. So next up, I would have us do rond de jambe en l'air. Rond de jambe en l'air, I like to do a lot of different kinds of combinations. It kind of depends on my mood, and also depending on how many classes we have per week. I might not teach a rond de jambe en l'air the first day, just because I'd like for them to have those first few combinations learned, and then we can add on later on. And of course, it also depends on how much time we have in class. rond de jambe en l'air, depending on the day, of course. Whenever we turn back around, I might have them repeat it with élevés or relevés. So, yeah. Okay, since we did a few fondus already, I will not do a big fondu adagio combination right now. If I did, typically it would be a lot of like the normal where you come up, hold, 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 down, hold, 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 hold. So it'd be a lot of that. There are some combinations that I do like to use where you're assisting yourself and you're feeling that turnout rather than trying to force it, because I feel like that's what a lot of teachers have had me do. Because I feel like if you're not in the right position, then your leg is never going to be correctly placed to create that ease that you can have in the hip socket. So I would typically have my students helping themselves and then letting go and just feeling how that feels in the hip socket, and then maybe doing another one without hands. So, but I'm gonna skip that for today. I do have a grand battement that I love to use. We used to call it the Roquettes grand battement. So it's basically 4 in each position and then a penché. So. And again, focusing on brushing against the ground. And extending that foot. After grand battement, sometimes I will do a little extra stretching, again depending on how everyone is feeling, how everyone's looking. We might have another stretching session, and then we will come center, and I will start with adagio. Because of my limited amount of room right now, I may not do all of the combos that I would do center normally. Right now, class is going slowly because I'm having to explain a little bit more. Normally I would be able to be like, okay, we're doing our plie combination, and then through that I'll be able to give them corrections. And again, I love to be more hands-on to help them feel where the muscles that they should be engaging are. So in center, I would typically do an adagio, a tendu, pirouettes, center, and across the floor, because I like to do different kinds of turns, of course. And then I would do petit allegro, and then grand allegro. Okay, my adagios are typically going to be a lot more of balances. Some teachers really like to do more fluid movement, but I really like to challenge my students to be balancing in center and moving their legs as they balance. So this is a combination that I would sometimes use, probably do a little bit more with it. Coupe. Up. Hold, susu, and down, and coupe. Draw that line up the leg. Make sure you're turned out. Up, over tombe pas de bourrée. Again, right leg, back, heel drop. It's an attitude. Plie. Arms up, slow movement. I'm going to show you a quick combination across the floor. Again, lots of balances. I like to use a little bit of a grand-ma or a développé sometimes, and just really feeling the music. Again, allowing the dancers not to just focus on their technique, especially now that we're at center, but to really focus on their presentation of their heel, making sure it's really lifted, and then also just like that port de bras, that upper body turns for me from fourth, well, any position, but I believe there's this formula that that my dance teacher used to use. It is arm, twist, flick, and the explanation for this is you use your arm to gather that force, and then your feet twist, not like that, but they're continuously staying turned out, and the friction that they're having against the ground is building up energy so that when you flick, that's the third step, arm, twist, flick, that it has enough energy to get you up and around many, many times. Again, of course, though, again, that anchoring, that standing leg is very important, and they have to be able to push up onto that front leg. So I don't really use the balancine position typically. Normally it's double bent, but then arm, twist, flick. And of course, landing much more nicely than I did and up. So, and also I believe, of course, more weight on the front foot than on the back foot. So yeah, even in fifth position, more weight on the front foot than on the back foot. Like so, okay? I'm going to go ahead and skip to Petit Allegro. Before I start jumps, there is a little warm-up that I like to use for my kids to just warm up those legs and really feel themselves rolling through the feet. So I'll just do that combination real quickly. 3, 4, 5, 6, and stretch. Repeat. 6, and close. And again, with that, I just have them let their arms down loose, and the whole point of it is to make sure they're not jumping like so, because that can be a real issue, is like doing that instead of just using your legs, the power of your legs. So Petit Allegro has always been one of my weaknesses. So I think it's very important to get the kids to do for sure. I think during the beginning of the week, I wouldn't push them to do any beats, but the second time through, especially in advanced classes, I'd love to see them attempting those beats, because I think that's just very good. Your inner thighs, and also, I mean, all professionals use beats, so why not start pushing the students to do them now? So, my combination, of course, it's always various. This one is never set for me. So it's glissade, jeté, glissade, jeté, glissade, assemblée, glissade, assemblée, sauté, coupé, pas de bourrée, up on the left leg, down, plié, coupé turn, coupé pirouette, close back, go to the other side. So I'm showing you that so that when I mess up, you at least know what it's supposed to be. reverence, of course, I end with a grand allegro. My grand allegros, again, like I said, I love to make them huge, big, very dancey, and as you can see, I do not have enough room right now to do one full out, but I can tell you exactly an example of one of the combinations that I would use. In my grand allegros, I really like to push the women to be more athletic and try to do more of what the male ballet dancers would do in like a classical setting, just to push them. Used to be my favorite thing to do. So here's one of my combinations that I would have them do. So I would have them do a tombe, pas de bout, chasse, step, step, grand jeté with a back attitude, and then chasse, other leg, repeat, grand jeté, attitude, step, step, piqué arabesque, step, step, tour, jeté, step, step. It'll be a turning pas de chat. So of course, you could just do half, or you can swing it around and do 1.5 rotations in that pas de chat, and then step back and tombe, pas de bourrée, glissade, saut de chat. In my tombe, pas de bourrées, I try to steer my students in the direction of square hips so that they're not doing split jumps from the side position, because I feel like that can hurt your leg, and also it means that your saut de chat is not going to be square. And so I try to encourage them to pull this hip of the back leg forward as they jump, so as to have a nice square position. Lastly, I like to keep my reverences kind of the same between my classes. I love to give my students that freedom of expression and artistry, so I would allow my students to dance, improv, however their body feels like they need to be moving, and then we would come together and they would follow me in whatever finishing reverence we would do. So I'll just do a quick reverence now and then sign out. Okay, again, thank you so much for watching. I know it was a little rough, small room and little chair, but I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I really try to focus on what is safest for my students. Again, never forcing turnout, but learning which muscles they should be using to properly be able to engage the correct muscles. And I like to push my students, but I don't like to push them in a way that could harm them. Because like I've mentioned before, I personally have had to deal with major injuries, which is why I can't really do jumps anymore because of my shin that had a really bad stress fracture, and the pain comes back every year. So I want my students to be able to enjoy dance. I want them to find passion and love, and I don't want them to ever feel inadequate or like they can't do this, because I feel like every person that has a heart for dance, or every person that ever takes a dance class, can learn something from it and grow, no matter what they do with it. That is not in my control. But yeah, I want to share that love for dance, and I want to be able to teach them in a safe way and scientific and anatomical way, so that they can more understand their bodies. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much.